Hello, it's Maggie the Cheshire Crafter here. Now I've been charity shopping again, and I've looked for linens in particular this week, and I've found 4 items, and in this video I'm going to talk you through what I'm likely to do with these. It's always worth taking a tape measure with you into the charity shops because you can measure the sizes and be certain that you can get the pieces that you want before you buy them. Now this was a men's shirt from Marks and Spencer's. It's one of the Blue Harbour range. It was very crumpled. It was almost on the floor. Somebody had trodden on it. So I've washed it and ironed it. And as a man's shirt, it would have been lovely for a holiday, but it's actually very thick, which means that although it's linen, it would have been quite hot to wear. And I think it's probably been worn once and then discarded. Well, discarded for me means acquired. So let me show you this shirt, and I'm going to show you or talk you through what I'm likely to do with it. Now, this one is straightforward. So we've got 2 fronts with no pockets, a long sleeve with a cuff. The buttons are nothing to write. Oh, actually, they're a bit pearlised, so they're quite nice. There is a little bit of contrast at the collar, which could go into a postage stamp quilting. On the yoke, there are 2 labels, one that's written on and one that will just be the matching fabric. And sometimes look at the cuffs, because sometimes that fabric is repeated in the cuffs. Unfortunately, it isn't in this one. It is at large size, which means that there's a lot of fabric in this shirt, and I paid £4.50 for it. On the back, beyond the yoke, again, there is no seam, there is no fold over, so that's a large piece of fabric. Now, I've measured it, and this measures 22 inches across. So from that back alone, I can get either large 10-inch squares, 7-inch squares I can make into half square triangles. I can get jelly rose strips. I can cut borders. From the sleeves, I can get squares or lengthy strips. And from the cuffs, I get smaller bits for piecing. Now, remember the colour of this. This is a pastel coral with a little bit of marling in. And there was another item I bought, I think in the same shop, that has that similar marling in, that makes it a pastel, tones down the vibrant colour, and it actually goes really well. Let me show you it next to this first. You can see that the 2 colours go really well together because this green has been toned down with a marling effect in it. And I'm going to show you what item that green clothing is. Actually looks a little bit Queen Camilla, this one. It's by Patra, and again it's linen throughout. Now, and if we look at the collar is around mandarin neck with some pin tucks, and as you know, I'll keep those pin tucks intact because I might use them as a feature. Now, from there upwards, you'll see that there's a dart, but from the armpits downwards, I've measured it, and there's 36 inches in length. So that's a yard of fabric just in the length there. And this is 5 inches across, and this is about 3 inches across. So if I was doing jelly roll strips, I can get lots of strips of fabric, and as it flares out, it goes a little bit wider, and then there's a deep hem. So there was 36 inches, add another 2 inches at least onto that hem, that's 38 inches. The buttons are quite pretty colour. They're just those fish tail buttons, but they're quite a pretty colour. Now, if we look at the sleeve, I can get a square cut out of the sleeve. There's a mark on it there, isn't it? It shows up on camera. And there's a turnover. Now, once I unpick the turnover, that turnover will measure 3 inches wide. And obviously there's 2 of them, 1 on each sleeve. There's not much I'll get out of the collar or the strip that holds the buttons. And sometimes this has interfacing added to it. But it would be okay for scrap quilting, or to create a strap, or for applique. Let me show you the back, because the back has more options for quilting. And that's because, I wonder if you can see on this, the seams on this are here. So again, I can cut long strips, and here, but this width is about 10 inches wide apart between the seams. And again, it flares out. So for £8.50, I can get a lot of strips, squares, and straps, applique, buttons, and pin tuck ready pleated small pieces of fabric from that. Summer is the time to look for linens in the charity shops, and you're not going to get much more summery than this linen playsuit. It was actually made for Primark, which meant that the resale price was actually quite low. But look, you've got wide leg trousers, there are no pockets, although there's a dart here. It goes right up to the shoulders, and then there are tie straps. Now those tie straps I'll keep together. They could become a handle or a tag. And this section here, if you turned it upside down, if you cut it as a cross, could become some quite fun summer bunting, and had it upside down, created it into a triangle. I say the darts are annoying that they're in the way, but look how many lengths, look at the length of either strips or 10-inch squares or jelly roll strips or 5-inch squares I can get from that. But I think that lends itself to long strips of fabric very well, which is what I was looking for, especially in linen trousers. And on the back, we haven't got darts misshaping it at the back, so actually the strips of fabric go right the way up to here, unhindered. I think there was a belt with this initially, or you could wear this with a belt, but the fact that it's not particularly shapely is great for me, and easy to take apart. I think that was £6. Colour of these trousers goes really well with the previous playsuit. You can see how they blend in quite well. In the summer, I look at the ladies' trouser section, because drawstring linen trousers, whether they're culotte length or full length, are worth buying, because they're really just two pieces of fabric joined together as a leg and then joined together at the crotch with a drawstring, and they're easy to take apart too. This was on the men's section, and on the men's section the difference is that they're looking at the waist size. There's a waist belt with loops for buckles, and there's not much shape in them. However, there are pockets in this. Now if I show you the pockets, you'll see that if I pull the pockets out, let's go in and we'll see the detail up here. There's also, not quite sure what these ties are meant to be for a man, not sure, but it's just braid that I'll use. Now the pockets pull outwards, and you'll notice, I'll come back to that in a minute because there's a contrasting fabric there. Because the pockets pull outwards and the pocket begins at the waistband, it means that this piece of fabric begins at the waistband for me. Okay, at the pocket here, it only goes up as far as this seam, but that's a long piece of fabric. Sometimes the pockets are part way down here and encroach into the fabric, and then they're sewn in again. So sometimes the fabric from the pocket comes and really shortens the length of fabric that I can reclaim from the pair of trousers, and I put those trousers back and selected these ones instead. Now the same as the collar and cuffs can be a contrast. You can see on this that the waistband and a section inside, I'll show you that in a minute, is a contrast, and it's cotton. It matches this fabric, which is a square, this is what I mean as an example of a pocket that encroaches. The pocket on this one actually only starts here. So if I cut that pocket off, I'm only losing a few inches of fabric. Sometimes that pocket will be sewn in and takes away a good, well, sometimes 8 or 9 inches of fabric there. And then look at the length of the hem too. Also a button and a zip, and this is a good strong metal zip, about 6 inches. Let's look at those pockets and contrast fabric in a bit more detail. You can see, in addition to the waistband, the pocket actually is 2 pieces of fabric sewn together in a flap, which is a good contrast cotton, and there are 4 pockets like this in this pair of trousers. The way that you can tell the difference in male or female is that the male gives you a waist and length. Ladies will be in size numbers. And lastly, this is a man's shirt. Now from a distance it looks white, but to me it's a blue low volume fabric because the pattern is on the white shirt, but what I would see in a quilt is the blue design. And this is low volume. Now this is a good example of a shirt that has a contrast at the collar. This has got an additional contrast on the inside collar too, not much of that, but then this fabric is repeated at the cuffs, both sides. That's quite a nice, interesting little piece of fabric as well. It's also, that fabric is also taken down the button front. Now because this piece of fabric hasn't got the buttonholes in it, this will come off in one long strip piece. As a shirt for £4, this was worth coming home with me. It was for, oh, it's M&S again. Let me show you the back. Yeah, it seems to be quite a slim fit, but for £4, again, there's a lot of fabric for me. Summer in the charity shops is a great time to look for linen, but beware of darts, pockets, seams, strange shapes. Unless you can picture how you're going to incorporate that in your sewing or your quilting, then put it back on the rail and leave it for somebody else as a garment. This is Maggie, the Cheshire Crafter. I'm going to be using some of these fabrics in my quilting soon. Come back and join me for that, won't you? Bye.